Welcome to the WRC podcast. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and you're in the right place. Here at the Well-Rounded Counselor podcast, what you can expect is to learn, shift your thinking, and gain personal and professional growth. And if you have not yet done so, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another podcast episode. The conversation starts now. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Well-Rounded Counselor podcast. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and I am so delighted to have you here today. I am so excited to talk about this topic. It just lights me up because this is how I want to grow this podcast. This is how I can help other people spread my message and help people bring more goodness into the world. Right, so today's topic is how to become a counselor. Now, a counselor can be any type of helping agent. Let's just face it. Like you can be a college counselor, you can be a therapist, you can be a drug and alcohol counselor, you can be a counselor for fitness, you can be a nutritional counselor. I mean, a counselor can literally come in different forms. And to be honest, there is no one-way path to become this. Everybody has a different journey, but I'm going to give you some nuts and bolts to consider. And I want to talk to you more specifically about becoming a college counselor. Because this is what I do, and this is what I'm passionate about, and this is what I've been doing for the last 15 years, and this is where my expertise is. So this is a question I get all the time is, how do you become a counselor? I'm interested in what you do. How do you do it? What did you do? What did you study? Like, they're just intrigued by what I do because, to be honest, like it's not the job that most people are going to voluntarily. People go for the status quo careers like engineer, doctor, lawyer, business owner. I mean, these are very status quo. But when you say you help people figure out their life and you're excited to share that information, people instantly start becoming very curious about what you do. And they're starting to, take interest, like asking very personal questions like, what do kids talk to you about? Like, do they talk to you about this? And do parents come and talk to you about that? And usually the answer is yes, yes, yes. They all come and talk to me. Like, you wouldn't believe the things I hear. And most of it's confidential and I can't really talk about it. But a lot of the times people take so much curiosity into what I do. It is very intriguing and it is also very exciting. So I did not know that I wanted to become a counselor or a college counselor when I was a young girl. If you've heard my story before, I always thought I wanted to go into something creative. And I always thought I wanted to become a dancer. And then I thought I wanted to become a film creator, a director, producer. Then I thought I wanted to work in broadcast journalism. And again, all of these things have kind of led me to where I'm at today. However, as you obviously know, I'm not doing that. So how did I fall into this? If you go back to my very first episode, you'll learn how I fell into becoming a counselor and my journey to become the well-rounded counselor. But to understand a bit more about yourself, you need to start asking yourself some reflective questions. Like, what are the skills that you possess? What does a skilled counselor need to know? Okay. They need to have empathy. That's like number one. You need to care for people. You need to be empathetic to what people are going through. You need to be a good listener. You need to be selfless. You need to be willing to be adaptable, because if people come in to your office or into wherever your work environment, and they bring to you something out of left field, like a totally off the wall topic, and you're just like not expecting that, you need to be adaptable to that. You need to be solution focused. You need to always be able to provide some sort of comfort and answer of what the next steps could look like, or you need to be able to help shift their thinking. Now, these are skills that not everybody will know off the bat. These are things that you'll need to learn or self-discover or figure out how to answer these kinds of things as each situation arises. So there's over thousands of scenarios that could arise or come across your desk or your office from different people that you work with. I mean, no two situations are ever going to look alike, but it's how you manage, it's how you deal with it, it's how you make judgment and you use your decision-making skills along with your professional skills that you've learned. So you'll need to ask yourself, what skills do I already have and what skills does a counselor need to have? And then you need to maybe write them down, figure out what your strengths are, figure out what you're already good at, and see if they're transferable into this career. of being a counselor or a coach or whatever, a mentor and a helping agent. So see what skills you already have, see what skills are required for the job. It's an easy Google search. You can even reach out to me through Instagram at wellrounded_consulting. You can ask me what skills that maybe I didn't mention in this, brief podcast, but there are loads of different skill sets that you need to have in different types of environments. If you are working with people, you need to have customer service skills. You need to be able to put your own things aside and focus on the other person and be attentive and mindful. I can use so many adjective and descriptive words. It just goes on and on. So let's get to the nuts and bolts. Like, what does the schooling look like and the practical work? Now, depending on what type of counseling you choose to go into, whether it's school counseling or careers counseling, fitness counseling, whatever that, alcohol, drug and awareness counseling, like whatever that looks like, it's going to look slightly different. But most of these will need some professional development of some sort. It will possibly need a degree. A lot of people that go into counseling, they typically are fascinated by psychology or something along the lines of communication. Maybe they decided to be a teacher at first. I know many counselors who were teachers, and then they eventually transitioned into counseling. I mean, so many of my former colleagues and my current colleagues, they've been a teacher. So they love working with people. They love working with students. They love teaching. So that's a skill in itself, is you're a teacher. You are willing to teach people new ways of doing things. That's what a counselor is. You're a teacher, but you work more one-on-one in smaller groups. So you'll need some sort of degree, and that really is down to your choice. Like I've told you before, I didn't have a psychology degree. I had a journalism degree as my undergraduate degree. Now, think like, well, why would you go from journalism to counseling? Well, my job while I was studying in undergrad, I was already doing college counseling. I was working with students. I realized those are where my strengths lied, is helping people, being empathetic. I enjoyed the topic. I enjoyed that line of work. And I realized that I was good at it. So I decided to go for a master's in counseling. Now, there's different types of counseling programs when it comes to a master's degree or even a PhD. You'll need to research which one is a good fit for you. And this is what I preach to my students, finding the right fit. That's a whole nother topic in itself. You can check out that on my YouTube channel. But finding what is a good fit for you and understanding, what the requirements are to get into these more advanced degrees. Now, if you don't want to do that route and you don't want to take up like a master's degree or a PhD, that's totally fine. You actually don't need a PhD to become a counselor unless you're planning to do research or teach academia, or you're very fascinated in a specific topic and you just want to know more about it. But it's not a compulsory thing. But having a master's degree would be more likely. But not every counseling role requires it. Let me just make that very, very clear. In my line of work, it is typically required, having a master's degree for school counseling or a counseling degree in a school. So if you don't do that, you'll want to get some work experience. Ways you can get work experience is through working in a school. That's number one, if you're able to. Like I said, maybe you were a teacher before, or maybe you had, for me, I worked for a federally funded program that was housed in a school. So that was another way, was that I was able to work with students inside of a school setting. Is I wasn't employed by the actual school or school district, but I worked for a federally funded program that had an offsite campus, offsite trainings, but then our program was housed at a school. So that also is a potential way. There's also state funded programs if you're in the US. So federal and state programs could be housed on a school campus or at a college campus as well. You could potentially find these offsite campuses on these types of places. So that's also another way. You can find professional workshops in counseling. I've gone to hundreds of PD, professional development workshops on different topics of counseling. If you're looking for resources, you can reach out and DM me on Instagram. I can give you some tips on that. There are conferences. I've mentioned this before, network, go to conferences. At first, I kind of begrudgingly would go to conferences as a graduate student. I didn't really enjoy it, But as I've evolved into a professional, I see the value in it. I see the benefit of exchange of ideas. I see the benefit of attending topics that you're uncomfortable with. I see the benefit of going to topics that you've never really been interested, because you need to know these things. Like, this is why you become a well-rounded counselor. You need to know a little bit of everything so you can be prepared in all areas of helping people. So conferences are an excellent way for you to get professional experience and networking. Also learning from others, just finding counselors in your area, depending on the topic, coaches, mentors, and reach out to them, see what their story was. Interview them, figure out what they did. Maybe they just took some online life coaching courses, or maybe they actually have like a nursing background. It just could vary. You'd be surprised of the types of people who are counselors and the skill sets they previously had and the change of career that they took to become a counselor. So it's just fascinating. People come from all walks of life and experiences, and it truly is, it is something else. So find people who, could potentially give you a little bit of just insight to what they did. And like I said, you can go back and listen to my previous recorded podcast. You can reach out to me directly and ask me any question. I'm so open to that. I'm so open to mentoring and helping people just develop and become a better person and becoming well-rounded. So some things I had to learn to become a college counselor. There were steep learning curves. I'll be very honest. I was good at listening. I was good at giving advice, but it was from a very biased perspective at times. So you have to be able to open up your worldview and put yourself in other people's shoes constantly. You need to get out of yourself and see things from a totally different perspective, even if you don't agree with it. You have to be selfless and open to understanding. And you need to put your own biases aside and not let that dictate your advice when you are speaking with someone or counseling someone. You have to remove your biases. It's okay to, if they ask you, what would you do? But you also have to put it in the context of the client. You also have to put it in the context of the student, the parent, and you have to be sensitive to their situation, whether the family comes from a low income background, whether they come from a refugee background, whether they come from a certain ethnic group. You have to be very mindful of who you are speaking to, how you communicate things, because perception, oh my goodness, people, perception is everything. And that's something I am still working on till this very day, like how I perceive information, even in an email, how I perceive maybe how someone is writing that email. Maybe I've spoken with them and I know they're a bit like temperamental when I speak to them. And then I think that their email is temperamental. Perception is everything. Oh my goodness. So make sure that you are open to everything. Another thing that is important to learn as a counselor is boundaries. Now, working in a school is very demanding. It can be very demanding. Working in a university setting can be very demanding. Working in a clinic can be very demanding, but you need to be able to balance work and life. Now, that's something that people need to learn, and it doesn't always come natural to everybody. Some people have a really hard time detaching from work. They feel guilty. They feel they're letting somebody down if they don't reply right away. And I definitely have some rules of thumb, if I get notified by a member of my leadership team and they reach out to me, they say, hey, you need to respond to this immediately, or this happened. Of course, I will always do what's in the best interest if it's an emergency. Emergencies are very different than just an email that comes through late at night. Don't feel obligated to respond to everything right away. Some things can wait 24 hours. Sometimes it's better to wait 24 hours to reply. And also, it's important to know what your work boundaries are and how to not blur that with your lifestyle, okay? For example, I love my colleagues. Like, they know I love them. And I also have my friends outside of work. And I like to separate the two. I like to have my work life and my work friends, but I also, when I'm off and out of work, I don't always want to talk shop. I don't always want to talk about work. So I make sure I have my activities and my hobbies and my friendships outside of work. So you need to have that balance as a counselor. Uh, and I say this because this is important for your well-being. Okay. You need to understand you have to take care of yourself. You have to put yourself first, and then you can show up better for other people. This is the point of this podcast, is taking care of yourself first, showing yourself that selfishness to develop and become better so you can show up better for other people, so you can be more loving and more giving and more of a blessing in their life. This is the whole point of this podcast, is so you can be a better person. You need to also learn how to deal with others. This is so important. That's the point. Like, there's no counselor if there's no one to counsel. So you need to learn how to deal with others. That's something that will evolve over time. Obviously, everybody has a different demeanor and nature of how they respond to people being a bit snappy or people being polite. Like, everyone has different ways of dealing with people. And I know that maybe how I've given feedback, again, it's perception. So if I feel somebody's angry with me, I get a bit anxious myself. It's hard for me to give them good feedback if people are shouting at me or angry. But you wouldn't believe, like, there's also wonderful people who come in very well-mannered, and maybe I'm just not having a good day, and that shows. So you need to know how to compartmentalize your feelings and your emotions, and you need to know how to deal with people, no matter your mood, no matter your anxiety, no matter your stressors, no matter what. You need to know how to deal with people and show up and put those things aside for a bit. Okay? It goes beyond a little bit this idea of customer service. The customer's always right. That doesn't apply to the counseling world. It's more of what's in the best interest of somebody else. That's what you should always be asking yourself. What is in the best interest for this person? So learning to make professional judgments is key becoming a counselor. Learning to make professional judgments, intuitive judgments, also ethical judgments. Also, you need to learn what are your ethical standards. There's a lot of professional organizations, if you choose to become a part of them, you need to read their ethical standards and put that into your practice. They're there for a reason, and they're there to actually protect you. So when you do come across these things, you can say, I'm a member of da-da-da, and da-da-da's code of ethics says this. So they're there to protect you. So when you make a decision and people push back, it's there to protect you. All right. So these are just some ideas of how to become a counselor. How to become a college counselor is a little bit more specific of a niche, but there's so many resources out there. Like, there are professional organizations that are focused on college admissions and counseling. There's professional organizations that can give you training to understand different tests that students need to take. There's different organizations out there and consultants out there that you can meet that are affiliated with a particular university. You can start networking with them. There's workshops on different countries in the world on how to apply. My YouTube channel is definitely a good starting point if you're learning about like nuts and bolts of counseling and college counseling specifically. It has a lot of wonderful topics that you can kind of break down in the college process. Just know that when applying to college, it's a timeline. So you need to know that timeline, and need to know how to help students and families in that timeline and present it and be thorough and be clear. One thing that I know working in an international school is that kids are literally going anywhere and everywhere, and not everyone's going to college anymore. Everyone's taking a gap year. They need to go to military. They need to take some time off and figure out what they actually want. Like, you need to also readjust your thinking as a college counselor and be able to provide resources to a wider audience. So these things are real. This is, I think, post-COVID. Well, we're still in COVID, but as things are opening up, people are still a bit unsure about their plans. And again, you need to just be open to learning and absorbing as much information on college counseling as possible. I didn't know what I didn't know. As you guys always hear me say, I had to learn different curriculums. I had to learn what different tests students had to take. I had to learn how to write a motivational statement versus a personal statement. Different countries want different things. different application systems, submitting documents, meeting reps, and understanding requirements. It's never ending. Let me be very honest. College counseling is a large learning curve. And there's a lot that one needs to learn. But if you are just looking to become a counselor, I really believe I've given you a lot of just things to think about in this episode. And if you do have questions, I keep reiterating this, please reach out to me because I really want you to feel supported as a counselor or somebody considering a career change. I want you to feel like you have community, that you are not alone, because that's how I felt when I was on this journey. I felt alone. I didn't have people who knew about this. I didn't even know that this was a career. I didn't even know that this was a job. I didn't even know that this would be my passion. So if you've fallen into this area, this gray area of like you want to help people and you don't know where to start, and there's lots of coaches out there that are trying to get you to buy their product, just look for a community first that can provide that to you. So if you feel that this information has helped you, or you know somebody that is looking to become a counselor or maybe even a college counselor, I am so eager to hear back from you. Send me a DM. I'm so curious to know who you are. And if you are catching this in real time, I am looking for guests to come on my show. So if you are a counselor and you want to be on my show, let's collab, let's talk, let's see what we can create and help people become more well-rounded, because this is the point of this podcast. It is there to help people and help them grow and become better. So if you are out there, please reach out to me. And if you are catching the replay, same thing, reach out to me. I am so eager to meet you. So I hope that this podcast and this episode has been helping you and it has been enriching your life. And also give me some feedback. Give me some topics that you would like to hear me talk about. Send me those DMs as well. All right, everybody, I will catch you all on the next episode. Did you love the episode? I hope you're feeling inspired and no longer feeling alone out there, and you're ready to evolve and become a better person. Make sure that you share this podcast or take a screenshot and post it on your social media. That's how you help spread this podcast organically, and people can find it much easier when you share, or share it with a loved one. I'm your host, Katrina Marie, and make it your mission to be a blessing in someone else's life today.